way more useful than anything else. And thank you guys for waiting till we hear from the team that we are good to go. We shall wait. And if you see me, if you see my eyes going left, right, that's because I'm looking in the computer and I'm reading the chat at the same time. Okay, well, I think what I'm going to do is I am going to start because I have not heard from them. I'm going to honor your time and we will begin in just about a second. Happy evening. Thank you for joining in today. Here we are. This session was supposed to be done on Saturday. And unfortunately, I had to move it because I suddenly lost my voice. I could not speak without coughing for more. I couldn't speak for more than 3 words without coughing. So I said, that's not going to be good for people who are listening in. And therefore, the team was good enough to move the session to today. So here we are on a Wednesday. We will meet again tomorrow. Thank you so much, Team Creator. We will meet again tomorrow for emotional intelligence. And then we'll meet on Saturday for another session on leadership mastery. So I get to see you guys, well, at least interact with you guys for almost 3 days in a row. So awesome. So if you're joining in for the first time, whatever it is that you are, whether you're joining in on socials or you're joining in here on Creator, my name is Shalu Butcher. I am a leadership development consultant. I work on organization development. I'm a coach. My focus area is on emotional intelligence, and I work with leaders on how is it that you move forward in your leadership journey with total power and with creating an impact on other people around you rather than being a manager, which is actually the topic for today. How do you transition from being a manager to being a leader? And I can tell you, there are very few career transitions that are more challenging to make. Because when you're a manager, you have positional authority, of course, uh, but you've got a specific set of things to do. I have to get my attendance in order. My team needs to be working and doing what it needs to do. We need to be making sure that I have load balanced work. I need to be making sure that I have the right number of people on the right day for the right work, and so on and so forth. But leadership is a whole animal, a whole ball game altogether. As you will find out as you keep growing in your leadership journey, as you keep growing in your career, in your corporate ladder. But know this: if you're thinking of climbing up the corporate ladder, if you're looking at achieving roles with greater responsibilities, of course, getting that positional power that comes along with being a leader, know this, that you will need to make the transition from being a manager to a leader. You can't do without it. Now, do understand this. It's very commonplace. A lot of, mostly you'll see people interchanging the words manager and leader. I want you guys to know that that's not correct. There are similarities, but calling them out the same is the incorrect thing to do. So the question therefore is, what is the real difference between who a manager is and who a leader is? Now, you could go read up on Cotter, John Cotter. He's written books. If you're an MBA student, you will know who John Cotter is. Just go and read the difference that he lists between management and leadership. So that's a good place to start. If I go into that, that's all that we will be doing today. But to give you an experiential understanding of what is the difference in managing, in being a manager and being a leader, is in how you approach your role as well as how people around you react. So what am I doing as a person with authority, and how am I getting other people around me to react to, and my behaviors? So often you feel that being a manager, I'm only doing, and a manager, like I can say that the analogy, not the analogy, like the simplest definition I can give you of a manager is somebody who's a specialist in execution. I've been given a goal or goals, I've been given a task or tasks, and I need to get them done from other people. I need to make sure I have enough resources, or if I don't have enough resources, how do I manage getting those resources, or how do I manage with the resources that I have to achieve the goals that I have been given, which I may or may not agree on. That's a different matter. A manager will make sure everything that needs to be done gets done, everything is in place that requires to be in place, reporting is done, tasks get done, quality is maintained, etc. A leader, on the other hand, notice the difference. Saurabh, that's exactly what I'm talking about. What is the difference between a manager and a leader? A leader, on the other hand, is somebody who comes in, inspires you, enthuses you, motivates you, influences you into getting the same tasks done. So a manager might be somebody who uses their authority, their positional authority, and tells you, get it done because I'm telling you to, and gives you the repercussions of not doing, actually gives you punishment for not doing stuff. By and large, will or will not encourage you, depends on the individual, on a job well done. A leader, on the other hand, is somebody who, let me take a step back. A manager is somebody who will usually push work getting done through people. A leader, on the other hand, will pull people into doing work. Simplest difference. If I'm a manager, by and large, what is found is I'm telling you, I'm giving you instructions. Do this, do this, do this needs to be done by such and such time and such resources. If you can't fix this, here's the person you go to. If you can fix this, do it yourself. I need this done by such and such time. A leader, on the other hand, is somebody who will turn around and who will not just ask you what can you do, but will get you to find your own solutions to the problems that are existing. It's a core difference between a manager and a leader. So if I were to say a manager is a project-focused, organized, detail-oriented, well, I shouldn't say detail-oriented, leaders can also be detail-oriented, but someone who's highly organized and someone who's like ticking off the boxes to make sure goals are met. Leaders, on the other hand, are visionary people who inspire teams to go, who inspire people to go above and beyond what they can do. A leader, if you remember the situational leadership session that we did the last time, is somebody who adapts their management style, their leadership style to the individual to get the maximum out of their team member. A manager is someone who will follow one style. Get this done. Straight up, straight up, straight up. This is what needs to be done. So if you're already in a leadership position, Neil, I'm glad that you like that on LinkedIn, on Instagram. So if you're already somebody who is in a position of authority, ask yourself, am I being a leader or am I being a manager? In any given situation, when you're going to approach a task, when you're going to approach an individual for a task that needs to be done, ask yourself, do I want to be someone who is a leader or do I want to be someone who's a manager? Remember this, Marshall Goldsmith has said this. In fact, he's written a whole book around this. What got you here will not get you there. So if you're already in a managerial position, remember this, what got you to being a managerial position will not get you into leadership. You'll have to do things differently. So let's take a look at it. What are some of the things that get you into becoming a team leader, a supervisor, or manager? Usually the fact that you did your work, your own job really, really well. And sometimes also that you encourage people, you were able to manage your resources really well. You've put in the time, you've worked on feedback that was given to you, you've improved yourself, you've upped your level of performance in the job that you were hired for. And along with doing the job that you were hired for, you were able to kind of, work with other teams and show that you were capable of being more than just an individual contributor. You had the right mindset to ensure that everyone was working towards their goals, that people were working together. You had a problem-solving attitude. All these things got you to the next level, from being an individual contributor to being a manager. But all these things will not now get you there. A lot of times what I see is people who are in managerial positions or in positions of authority are still continuing to do the work they were doing before. Because I moved up from the same team in the same organization, And now, so earlier when I was an individual contributor, everything was hunky dory. All I needed to do was my own job. But now I'm responsible for the job of 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe just even one person. So what do I do to ensure that I am proving my capability even as a manager? Because now I have a team to lead. When I see that they're not doing the things that they need to do, I will roll up my sleeves and I will start to do the job myself. So you're still doing the same stuff. You're not doing different stuff. And that's usually what I see managers end up doing. Leaders, on the other hand, will go that step beyond. They will realize that now my role is different. I have a team underneath me who's working, again, whether it's one person or 25. I have a team that is working with me, under me, to ensure that we are achieving our goals together. My job is to make sure these people are doing their job really, really well. My job is to ensure I create an environment around me that makes them feel enthused to work. My job is to make sure my communication with these people is so strong, is so powerful, is so inspiring that they are inspired, they are motivated to do the job themselves. I know of people personally. What should be the mindset when we're in the position of a leader is a question. Then I'll just come to that. I know of people. When I was employed and when I was doing my own job, and now when I have my own team members, I have seen people actually do this even at fresher levels. So Amar, if you turn around and say I'm a fresher, there is nothing that stops you from being a leader, even if you have zero experience. I'm not, mind you, this is not just for Amar, this is for everyone. I'm not talking about manipulating other people to do your job for you. That's not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about you carrying people along with you. You seeing that some of your team members are feeling a little burdened, are feeling a little down and out, are feeling a little demotivated, are not as inspired as they could be. How well do you carry them along? It's you. So somebody who's a leader at literally the fresher level is also somebody who will see that tasks need to get done, and they will step beyond their own role. They'll step beyond their own comfort zone and they'll say, come, I'll load balance. Come, I'll pick up this slack. If nobody else is doing it, I'll do it. Because their eye is on the big picture, and that's a very important quality for a leader. So when you're transitioning from manager, first time manager or otherwise, to being a leader, remember this is a mindset shift. And so Zena's question of what should my mindset be is really, really important and pertinent. Pooja's question is, but people will think we have an attitude if we behave like that. What kind of attitude, Pooja? We're saying that you are actually going ahead and helping other people. That's a great attitude to have. You're carrying people along with you. You're saying, come, let's do this. We can do this together. You're inspiring people. You're motivating people. So do elaborate on what kind of attitude do you think people will have? And when you say, if we behave like that, what kind of behavior do you mean? In the meanwhile, I'll go on as you're typing and I'll come back to what you're saying. So if I were to go back into Saurav's question and Zena's questions of what's the difference between a leader and a manager, and what should the mindset be when we are in the position of a leader, I'm going to share some differences with you. One of those is managers are found to be more instructing, whereas leaders are found to be more inspiring. A manager will instruct, this needs to be accomplished. And obviously, if you're a team member, you are expected to follow the instructions and deliver the output. A leader, on the other hand, inspires their team to do whatever comes across their table. A leader motivates their team by communicating the culture of the team, the philosophy, and speaking in words, communicating in words that are actually important and of value to the team member. So not just saying, making one sweeping statement, but actually having a communication one-to-one with everyone, with every single one of their team members, which allows those team members to feel, my goodness, this person really cares about me and is really, really interested in my own growth, in my own results, in my own success. So that's one of the key differences, both in the mindset as well as in the nature of being a manager versus a leader. Okay, Pooja says, and she's clarified, her thought was, but people will think we have an attitude if we behave like that. And when I asked, what does behave like that mean? She says, like we know everything. Pooja, remember this. A leader not only knows what to say, but they also know how to say it. So when you walk around sharing with people, come, I'll help you. Come, maybe this is another way that you can do this, and you do it from, with an air of superiority. Oh, come on, you couldn't even do this. Yeah, why don't you try that? That is very different from, hey, I've tried this before. Would you like to try this with me? Maybe it works. There's a huge difference in how you say what you say. Of course, what you say is very important, but how you say, extremely important. So glad that you resonate with that, Pooja. So one was instructional versus inspirational. The other, and this is a big, big one. So watch out for it if you're already in a leadership position or a position of authority. And when you are ready to step into that role, watch out for this one. Usually we find managers end up micromanaging their people. Did you do this? Did you get this done? How are you doing this? Why can't you do it like that? How much more time are you going to take? Come on, this is still not done. Let me do this for you. Have you done it? Show me, have you done it? They literally lean over into the person's computer and say, have you done it? There's a bird in the jungles of Madhya Pradesh that sounds like this. Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? And once I went for a safari, and this was in Bandhavgarh, and literally I heard that word. Did you do it? Did you do it? And it reminded me of a micromanaging manager. Literally feels like that, looking in over your shoulder and seeing what you're doing. So managers generally try to keep, tight stranglehold control over what's happening in their team, what's going on, who's talking to who, why is the performance this way, that way, the other way. Only performance is important. And what may happen is that in such a situation, they may end up losing sight of the fact that their role is to work with people. It's not to whip people to work. That working with people, getting people to work, is the role that the leader takes in. The leader steps away from micromanagement. The leader creates empowerment. How does empowerment happen? I'm not going to talk very long about it because that's a whole subject on its own. But a leader will ensure that their people have the right tools, have the right skills, have the right kind of support to be able to tackle things on their own. I'll give you an example. I was at a client's office today and we were talking about, how is it that people have been stepped up into various roles, but they have not necessarily been given the skills. They've not necessarily had a safe space created for them to make a mistake. They've just been told, here's your job, go do it now. And then when they're unable to do the job, they are made to feel bad about themselves. That's the job of a manager. I'm not saying every manager does this, but by and large, mostly, I don't want to get killed by the manager community. But this is what is observed about managers. That's the feedback that we get, that my manager is like this. And I'll tell you, this is very interesting. When I do diagnostic work, which means I try to find out what's going on at a client's place, which needs to be addressed, I will usually find this, that people who feel that they're being led by managers will call them managers. And people who feel empowered, people who feel inspired will call their managers leaders. It's very interesting that, it's very interesting that even the language becomes like that. And Saurav says, yeah, sometimes managers do that. Sometimes it becomes like I'm not going to say the name, but it becomes a kind of a rule which is very dictatorial. Okay. So yeah, that's absolutely true. So we've talked about two different things. Managers are instructional, leaders are inspirational. Managers are micromanagers, leaders are empowerment-oriented people. Managers will, they'll focus on targets. This is our target. We have to achieve this. This is what we need to do. If we don't meet these numbers, so the focus on the conversation on numbers is really large. And I hate to say this, but the fact is also that managers will hide behind numbers to kind of be able to use that as a platform to give feedback which they desire to give. I hope you know what I mean. If you haven't done your job, if there is a little bit of friction between you and your manager, they will use numbers to kind of give you feedback, to pull you up, to haul you up. A leader, on the other hand, is somebody who will share a vision. They'll still sneak in the numbers because, hey, numbers have to be met. That's what everyone is getting paid for when they come to work, right? But they will do it more from creating the big picture. The target is not the end goal of a leader. Leaders will come with a long term vision, a full holistic approach for the team, for the organization, for the work that needs to be done. How do we want to meet with our clients, whether the clients are internal or external. So for a leader, for a manager, the target becomes the end. This is what we have to achieve. For a leader, the target becomes a stepping stone towards achieving something larger. Amar says sometimes the target does inspiration, but sometimes it's stressful. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct, Amar. And therein lies the difference. If I'm being given the targets by a manager, it's usually stressful. If to do this, come on, guys. If we don't do this, we're all going to be, in a very bad situation. Nothing is going to happen. The organization is in the doldrums. A leader, on the other hand, will use targets as an inspiration. Hey, come on. We did X last year. We did 100 last year. How about we set ourselves, the goal of doing 150 this year, and in that we will achieve XYZ. So the difference is, are you looking at the same thing, which is the numbers? Are you looking at it as an end, or are you looking at it as a stepping stone or a means? Are you looking at coming in, shoving the numbers down your team members' throats, or are you saying, hey, what do you think will work here? We've been given a target of 120 or maybe 130. Do you think we can achieve 150? I want to be able to show what is it that we can achieve together. So a leader, while sharing the vision, will also be a whole lot more inclusive. So here were some of the differences that lie between a manager and a leader. But given that we're talking about a transition between being a manager and a leader, let's take a look at what are some practices that organizations can inculcate, that people can encourage or others can encourage uh, into managers to become leaders. But before that, if you have any questions, any thoughts, please share them in the chat. So Amar says, yeah, and the tone, how they say it is more stressful. Yeah, I know. So a manager, by the way, if we just talk about targets and versus vision, a manager is usually somebody who will come across very stressed, very harassed, and they'll pass on the stress and harassment to you. Well, not harassment, but being harassed to you. They'll share the stress with you. A leader, on the other hand, will absorb the stress. They'll deal with the stress themselves, and they will bring it to you in a very inspirational, very encouraging, very enthusiastic manner. And when I say enthusiastic, I don't mean they'll all the leaders are jumping around. No, no, there are a lot of leaders who have a very quiet demeanor, and even in a soft voice, and even in their quiet demeanor and soft voice, they're still able to inspire you to say, come, let's do this, man. Like if I were to give you examples during COVID time, there are so many people who continued to work in COVID because they were inspired. They were inspired by their leaders to step out, to leave their families, to put themselves at risk, because here the world was dealing with an issue that nobody knew how to tackle. And everyone was scurrying inside into their homes, including the government giving diktats that everyone has to stay inside. And here were these people who were enthused, who were encouraged, who had, who were being shown a vision to go out there and take care of others. You think of healthcare workers, you think of essential care workers, you think of the police. So many of them, in fact, the entire police force was out, total risk to their lives, so much good work done. Were they pulled into the workforce kicking and screaming? No. I'll give you the example of another client of mine. The police, one may say, oh, it's their job, they didn't have an option. And I'll give you the example of a client where the essential services or the shared services within their organization, the teams that were managing the facilities and ensuring everything was safe, they were still coming. Now, they had rotation. And in those people, there was one team leader who was encouraging, inspiring, having powerful conversations with the team. The manager, like actually the designated authority of that team, was sitting at home, didn't show up for 2 years. Was just going on giving instructions on the phone, on Zoom, etc. But didn't come to the facility. When he was asked later on, why didn't you come to the facility? He says, oh, I have old parents. And what about the old parents that your team members have? What about the young children that your team members have? That team leader who was reporting into the manager who didn't show up, that team leader was enthusing people, was encouraging them, was talking to them when, when the team members would walk up to him and say, hey, I'm feeling scared, what if my father catches it, what if my mother catches it. They were actually helping counsel, even if they weren't, even if the team leader wasn't a counselor, he was helping counsel all those people, saying if something happens, here's what we will do, and we know nothing is going to happen. Made sure that all of these team members were actually vaccinated, taken care of. If anyone showed even any slightest hint of being unwell, the team leader would immediately step in, take care of the person, send them home, make sure that he stayed in touch with the team members, ensured that they were safe, the family members were safe, and so on and so forth. And by the way, this individual, this team leader, it's inspirational. How inspirational is it? He's only a designated team leader, not too many teeth and too many responsibilities and too much authority, right? But his own parents fell sick during COVID. Luckily, not COVID, but fell sick during COVID. And while taking care of his parents, he was coming to work and he was making sure that any team member whose family members also got COVID, he was helping those people find oxygen cylinders, find oxygen concentrators, get medication, get admitted into hospitals, and so on and so forth. That's leadership. Keeping the big picture in mind, my role is to take care of my people. Not that, boss, my job is to take care of you guys. It's not my problem that your family doesn't have an oxygen concentrator. Real examples of people who are managers versus leaders. So it doesn't matter of what level of authority you're at. You could be a senior vice president somewhere and still be a manager. How you got there, I don't know. You managed to somehow get there for sheer dint of all you were bringing in great results, maybe. And this happens a whole lot. I know of a lot of sales leaders who literally reach like C-1 level, C-suite manager or CEO, CXO level, -1. And that time the organization calls me to coach them to be a better leader rather than just being a driving manager. So what makes a great leader? All of these things. And also very, very critical is the emotional quotient. We've spoken about EI, or emotional intelligence, in our other series of programs or of live sessions that we do. And that's such a huge, such a critical skill and a mindset for a leader to have. So what does go ahead and make a great leader? The emotional intelligence, or the emotional quotient. There's another one that I'd like to share, the engagement quotient. How much do I engage with my people, and how free, how comfortable, how safe do my people feel in engaging with me? How safe do they feel in coming and sharing their issues with me? How safe do they feel in coming and giving me feedback? That's what makes me a great leader. And when I'm a great leader, when my emotional quotient is high, leading to when my engagement quotient is high, you will find my team will actually perform a whole lot better than any other team. So if you want to invest in yourself, invest in building your emotional intelligence, invest in building your engagement intelligence, invest in being a leader, invest in finding out and learning. So invest your time now, not your resources, but invest your time in building faith, in building confidence in your team members. If you want to move from being a manager to a leader, forget the fact that execution needs to be done. Of course, it needs to be done. Of course, you need to delegate. But remember that you can do all of that. You can still get your results achieved if you do go ahead and you delegate with trust. You don't micromanage. You delegate a task to the right person using situational leadership that we spoke about the last time. You delegate the task and then you let them do the job that they need to do. Give them freedom. Have faith in them. Have confidence in your people that yes, this individual will be able to do what needs to be done. Of course, being a leader who delegates and lets people find their own way doesn't mean that you stop being accountable and responsible for the results. You're still accountable. You're still responsible. So let's say a task has to take 2 weeks. It doesn't mean that in all those 2 weeks you completely leave the person alone to sink or to swim. What it does mean is when you're delegating the task, you ask the individual what might they need, how confident are they about completing the task, what support can you offer, and then you take a step back. You let the individual come to you and you ask them, I'd like to do 2 reviews in these 2 weeks. What works for you? Let us book those reviews now. You can come back to me and tell me whatever you need to. When we do the review, we will look at these parameters. You don't let the individual sink. You work with them so that they can swim. That's another transition from being a manager to a leader. We've already spoken about emotional quotient. I think one more difference between a manager and a leader that I really, thank you, Saurabh. Saurabh says fair point. I think one of the other really critical um, differences between a manager and a leader is a manager's focus is usually on getting the task done without paying too much attention to the individual's development, the individual's growth, the individual's skill needs, their emotional needs, etc. A leader, on the other hand, believes things like mentoring, things like supporting, things like coaching are the paths to getting people to learn how to do their tasks a whole lot better. There's usually the analogy that I give for the simplest way to explain the difference between a manager and a leader. I use that saying, you give a man or give a person a fish to eat, you have fed them for a meal, but you teach them how to fish and you have fed them for a lifetime. So as a manager, what you're doing is you're teaching the person to fish. You're saying, here, go do this task. Here, go fish. But as a leader, you're letting them learn how to fish. Sorry, not here, go how to fish. Here, take the fish and go eat it, is what a manager does. But a leader will go ahead and say, here, let me show you how to fish. You learn how to fish. I'm right here. If you fall into trouble, if you're fishing the wrong way, I will guide you, but I want you to learn how to fish so that tomorrow, if I'm not here, you don't go hungry. It's a huge difference. A manager does not believe in things like mentoring. A manager will tell, go get this done like this. A leader, on the other hand, is going to make sure that they are working with the individual to say, all right, so you were not able to catch a fish the last time you threw the line. What can you do differently now? Amar says, wish everyone follows that quote. Yes, Amar, I wish so too. I wish so too, so that we can help people. Like, okay, so what are we doing here? I can tell you, go do this to be a manager. Go do this to be a leader. On the other hand, I'm speaking to you about what are the differences, so you can pick and choose. Oh, I'm being a good leader. That's not what I wanted to come to, but sure. All right, so remember this, a manager's job is, or a manager's focus is on getting their work done, getting their tasks done, so that at the end of the day, they can sign off and say, my team has achieved its targets. A leader's job or a leader's mindset and a leader's role, on the other hand, is to make sure that people are upskilling themselves. One other very important difference that lies between a manager and a leader that I don't want to forget is that a manager is concerned about themselves. A leader says, I'm happy to let you go. I'm happy that you grow and you get better than I am. I'm happy that, no, Zena says our manager is so bad. No, not really. Zena, I do want you to know managers are human beings. It's not that they're bad. It's that they're, she says, oh, thank God, okay. No, managers are not bad. It's just that the way that they have learned how to lead has so much more scope for improvement and has so much more scope for them becoming leaders. What you must remember, what we all must remember is people see, people do. If I see that the person who I am following, so my own manager, if I see the person who's supervising me is behaving in a certain way, chances are when I reach that leadership position or not leadership, but I reach that position of authority, a lot of chances are that I will do exactly the same way. So if I have 3 people who I'm looking up to as supervisors or as people who have been in a leadership position, in a managerial position, and I see all 3 have similar behaviors, chances are I will end up doing the same things myself because I don't know any better. Does that make me a bad person? No. Does it make them bad people? No. Maybe nobody was able to tell them anything different. And therefore, you have the opportunity of not doing those things. Are they bad people? Not at all. They're good human beings. So being a manager has nothing to do with me being a good or a bad human being. Being a manager simply means I don't know any other way of being. So make sure that you guys now know that there is a different way of being. So please don't do the same mistakes. Does that make sense? I'm going to pause here and see if anyone has any questions. Okay. So I'm going to start talking about what are some things that can help you make this transition smoother. Number one, and some of them will end up being skills. So you may want to take notes on this. Number one, can you take a step back and start looking at the bigger picture? How does, like, what does that mean? How does the work that you all are doing or that your team is doing, how does that feed into the larger picture of the organization's goals? Think of it like this. If you are at the center and you're doing the work that you're doing, think of it like a wheel of a bicycle. There are all those spokes, those little wires that go into the rim from the center. Think of you as one spoke, another person is one spoke, another person is one spoke, and so on and so forth. So don't just look at your job from being a spoke yourself. Look at your job from I'm a spoke here. This is the entire wheel. Every spoke in the wheel has some task to do, and together we are making the wheel, and together we are making the bicycle move. A leader is able to look at that bigger picture, take a step back and say, okay, this is how my job and this is how the job of the people around me feeds into the larger organization's goals and the larger organization's vision. Remember this, most organizations are working towards achieving a vision. From vision flows strategy, from strategies flow goals, from goals flow tasks and activities that people at the doer level do. Saurav says, but managers should be strict to get the work done right. No, Saurav. So as a manager, are you somebody's teacher? Are you somebody's parent that you need to be strict? No. I have found that the more you allow people the trust, the more you let them know you trust them, the more you let them know you're not going to micromanage them and you actually don't micromanage them, the more people and the more you inspire them, the more people are willing to do for you. You know, I was speaking to, and I was so happy to hear this, I was speaking to a friend who's taken on a new role as a vice president, people and development in an organization. And he says, Shalu, I've come from this really, really large organization and I've gone into a smaller organization. And here I've come from a place of high structure of performance management systems and appraisal systems and reward and recognition systems and so on and so forth. And I've come into an organization where there are no performance appraisals, where people are actually trusted to come and show at the time that they've finished the project that this is the project I had picked up, these are the projects I've completed, these were the results, these were the impact of that, of the projects that I picked up. Here's where I think I'm ready for a promotion or not ready for a promotion. Here's where I think that I'm ready for an increment or not ready for an increment. Here's where I feel I'm ready for a new project, but not a promotion really. Can you imagine the empowerment that those people feel? So if you have to make a transition from being a manager to a leader, also remember that. Do you need to be strict? No, you're not a school teacher. You're not a very terrifying principal or a vice principal who's standing there with a stick in your hand. You don't need to be strict at all. Saurav, please understand this. When people trust you, when you empower people as a leader, you don't need any form of control. Control, being strict, punishment, reprimands, repercussions are required when there isn't mutual trust between the team leader and the team follower. That's the only place where this is required. You know, so great, I'm glad that you get that. I'm going to give you an analogy of parents. Some of us grew up with very strict parents. Some of us grew up with parents who were very liberal. Were either set wrong? No. The strict parents were right in their way. The non-strict parents, the liberal parents were right in their way. What was the difference? Parents who are very strict are operating from a space of fear, are operating from a space of lack of faith, lack of trust. Parents who are liberal trust their children to be able to make some sort of a decision. They're able to have the faith in their child that I have taught my child the right thing. The world is a safe place. Even if it's a little unsafe, I know that my child is going to be able to handle things. I know this because I've grown up to a very liberal set of parents, as is my brother. So we were allowed to make a lot of our mistakes, which allows us to be as confident as we are. But I've had a best friend, a friend from my childhood, whose parents were very strict. And she didn't have the same luxuries that I did. We both grew up in the same world. We both grew up at the same time, but we're a different set of parents. It's the same thing. In the same organization, you will have managers who are strict because they don't trust their people and the people don't trust them. And they want to make sure that come back. Okay, here we are. Perfect. So I was saying that a leader, do you really need to be a strict leader, a manager? No. And I was talking about the fact that managers will, people who are strict managers will actually find people lying to them, saying, oh, I have a stomach ache, when all they want to do is not come to work because they know there is a strict review coming up. Or they want, they're already looking for another job. And so they say, like, I can't tell you the number of times people have used my grandmother died to be able to go and give an interview. I remember in an organization that I was working decades ago, and yeah, that's how long I've worked. About a decade and a half ago, I remember, one manager coming to me and telling me that, what, this person is not feeling too well. She's been out for the past 2-3 days, saying that she's broken her foot. She's not coming into work, and I'm a little worried because I don't know how to make her load, how to load balance her work. And I was just an assistant manager at that time. So I said, okay, we were just talking about it. And that evening, I went out for dinner with my friends. And what should I see? I see this girl walking up, completely dressed to the nines, even 1.5 decades ago, dressed to the nines, at that restaurant, looking absolutely happy and chilled, and nothing wrong with her food. So people where where organizations and teams where managers are strict also encourage lying, also encourage a lack of trust, also encourage to people not talking to each other, a lot of conflict and a lot of fear. So should you be Saurabh says, I will tell my manager to attend your sessions from now. Sure, Saurabh. Just make sure that you are not that kind of manager who's strict and who's kind of doing all of these things to people. Okay, so just moving. Good, I'm glad you're not that kind of a manager, Saurabh. So one of the things we said was look at the bigger picture. Then we said trust your people, and we're also saying, yeah, another very, very good strategy to make the move from being a manager to becoming a leader is to learn how to delegate. There was a Gallup study that was done, which found that companies who had leaders who delegated to their team members actually had higher growth rates, higher revenues, and they actually had they created a greater number of jobs. If I can find that study, I will share it with you guys. I don't know how, but I will share it with Team Creator, and you can reach out to them. Do remember, one of the biggest jumps from managerialship to leadership is when you have learned and perfected the art of delegation. Perhaps I can do a session on delegation, the why, what, and how of delegation. But remember, one of the biggest reasons to delegate is if you want to make the transition from being a manager to being a leader. And delegation is a whole animal in itself. Most managers find it difficult to delegate because they don't want to let go. They don't want to let go of the tasks they were doing, number one. Number two, they don't trust their people. Number three, they're scared of the repercussions on themselves because, hey, I'm your manager. If you don't do the task, I'm going to be the one whose head will be on the chopping block. That's the mindset that they operate from. A leader, on the other hand, will delegate. Sometimes that delegation may end up being incorrect, but the leader will take the fall for it. Then they'll say, look, I should have been able to train this person better. I should have been able to handle this person a whole lot better. And I should have been able to make sure that this individual was able to do the task which I delegated to them. So that's another key difference between leaders and managers. Trippy, the background is coming back, Pooja. Just give it a moment. There you go. Uh, so Amar, are you saying your manager is like the kinds who does delegate or who doesn't delegate? I'm a little worried for you now. Let me read what you're saying. Guys, be very careful of calling your managers and your leaders from the next time. Amar, tell me, he's like a leader. Very good. I'm so glad that you have that. And Amar, I don't know how much time you have, like how much experience, etc., that you have. I hope you're a young person who's just beginning out, because when you start out with the right leaders and not have managers, your entire experience of being an employee, being a team member, and then as you grow into leadership is so much more better, so much more beautiful. Lovely. So we've spoken about if you want to make the transition from manager to leader, look at the big picture. Create and communicate learn to delegate. The next one that I want to speak about is create and communicate the vision. I'm very inspired to work with the team. Good to hear that, Amar. So make sure that you're communicating the vision to your team at all points of time. Look, no organization lives in a perfect world. There is nothing like a perfect world. So every organization goes through its highs, goes through its lows. It's cyclical. It will happen unless or until the organization is constantly staying ahead of the change curve, constantly able to disrupt the market, constantly being a leader in change. When that happens, of course, that comes along with its own challenges. Change is not easy to handle. But every organization will go through its dips and its highs. That's a given. Now, in an organization where you want to continue to work is an organization where leaders are constantly communicating the vision with their people and carrying people along to live that vision. They're constantly aligning their people to the vision. So if you want to make the transition from being a manager to a leader, please make sure that you yourself get the vision, you buy into the vision, and then you communicate with the vision. You communicate the vision to the people. Sunil, you're saying work. I don't know what you mean. So if you could please elaborate, that will really, really help. Another thing that I want to share with you, in fact, this is coming from a conversation that I had today at my client's office, and that is transparency. Do your people know what's really going on? Is there a veil behind which communication exists? Is there clear, transparent communication? Harvard Business School did a survey in which they found that 70% of employees said that they are most engaged when communication is open and honest. When I know what's going on, when I'm being shared with that this is the reality, even if it's harsh reality. When I know transparently what's going on, what are the ways of being, why is the process happening this way? Why is the change being made? What's really going on? People will be more engaged because they will have more trust in you as a leader. Now, when that happens, when I have trust in you as a leader, I will open up more. I will share my fears with you. That will tell you how I need to be motivated. I will share my aspirations with you. That will tell you how I need to be developed. I will come and share ideas with you. That will tell you what else can be done, how else can your organization expand. There is a concept called organizational vitality. And organizational vitality is measured by how much trust, well, among other things, how much trust exists within the organization between people and leaders, between people and managers and / leaders and the organization. Organizational vitality is measured also by the level of absenteeism, the level of ideas that are coming in from the people, the level of accountability and ownership people take, the level of owning up to mistakes that people in the organization are doing, the level of attendance within an organization, the level of how many people do you go and tell to come and join your organization because you truly believe in your organization. All of these things, among other things, are what help you actually manage organizational vitality. And organizational vitality, one large part of it comes from transparency. Are you transparent with your organization? Are you transparent with your people? Are you able to also take what they have said to you and keep it confidential? Or does someone say something to you and are you like a mic? Are you like a broadcaster? Are you like a newspaper? And are you sharing everything that has been shared with you? So that's another thing. I'm just keeping an eye on time. What else, can you do to start transitioning from being a manager to being a leader? Don't take other people's credit. A lot of times it's found that managers are people who are taking other people's credit and saying, oh, I did this. So, in my opinion, I have a great idea. That's what a lot of managers will do. A leader, on the other hand, will give credit, will boost up their own people in a larger forum. So, let's say I'm in mid management or I'm in senior management. As a leader, I will go ahead and I will say, you know what, this person. So let's take Amar. Amar in my team came up with such a brilliant idea, and because of that idea, because of the way we tweak the process, we have actually been able to save 5 minutes on our turnaround time. And 5 minutes is huge in the work that we are doing. Leaders don't hesitate in sharing credit, in giving credit where it is due. Leaders also equally don't hesitate in taking responsibility. The minute things go south, a manager will say, oh, but Shalu did this. I will speak to Shalu about it. A leader, on the other hand, will say, I take the responsibility. I will work with my team to make sure this doesn't happen again. They will not take a name. They will say, I will work with my team. I take the responsibility that this did not happen. Huge, huge, huge difference. Huge difference. And of course, the biggest thing, I think we started out with that leaders are not people who go and tell their people this is what needs to be done. Leaders are people who inspire their team members and get them to carry along other people also. Leaders are people who inspire others to go beyond what they think they are capable of. That's what leadership is all about. So if you need to make the transition from being a manager to a leader, remember these things. And I'm going to share at the end, and I'm going to read this out, so bear with me. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, a good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. So if you're if you are aspiring to transition from a manager to a leader, remember that great leaders, nurture the talents and strengths of their teams, of their people, and get them to commit to achieving common goals. While moving from manager to leader can be an exciting transformation, remember it does have its challenges because you have to mature up. You have to give up your need to be acknowledged. You have to give up your need for importance. You have to give up your ideas only, and you have to start embracing other people. That's the difference between a manager and a leader, and that's what it takes to transition from a manager to being a leader. And that's that for today. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Thank you, Saurav. Saurav says, very well said, ma'am. Thank you. My name is Shalu. You don't have to call me ma'am. Makes me feel older. Anything I can answer? Anything else that I can answer? So I hope that some of your concepts, no more questions. Thank you, Saurav. I hope some of your concepts about manager versus leader have been answered today. And I hope you don't walk away with believing managers are bad people. They're not. They're just people who don't know what does it mean to work differently because maybe they were not taught. I'm glad it was informative, Saurav. Thank you very much for joining in. Alrighty, if there are no other questions, I'm happy to call it a day. Thank you very much for being here for almost an hour. It's always exciting to talk to you guys. If you'd like to follow me, I'm reachable on LinkedIn as Shalu Butcher, on Instagram and on YouTube and on Twitter as Coach Butcher. And any live sessions that I do on Coach Butcher Live on Instagram. So welcome, Zena. I'm so happy to see you every single time, Zena. Thank you for coming. It boosts my morale. Thank you so much. And thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening ahead. I will see you guys tomorrow for emotional intelligence. If you're joining in, see you there. Bye bye. Thank you, Amar.